Hi there, I'm pastor and author Robert B. Scott of freedomchurchofgod.com. We've had a lot of questions about Matthew 16 verse 19. What does it mean, this binding and loosing stuff? Exactly what does it mean? Well, let's start with verse 18 actually. He's talking to Peter and he says, I also say to you that you are Peter. Now that word is Petros, which means a little pebble. It's not a big rock, it's a little pebble. You are a little pebble, and upon this rock, Jesus himself, he's talking about, I will build my church, and the gates of Hades or hell will not overpower it. Well, why will hell not overpower the church of God and the members of that church? Because Jesus gave, not just to Peter, but to all believers, this promise in verse 19. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. The things that open the door to heaven, to the power of heaven, released on earth to defeat hell in our lives. And whatever you bind on earth shall have been bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall have been loosed in heaven. So what does that mean? Well, binding, if you look at Mark 3, there's a word binding used for demons. It says bind the strong man, to have what is needed released. So we release things that are blessings from God. To do that, we need to bind the enemy. And the enemy, Ephesians 6 says the enemy, Paul says it's not flesh and blood. The real enemy we face today are the demons, Satan and the demons. We can bind. You see, we can bind. If your son or daughter, let's say, is struggling with depression, then you bind the spirits of oppression, dismay, despair, and discouragement, which make up depression. There's no demon, depression. You bind those demons. You say, Satan, we bind these demons. We declare you cannot influence my son in any way, shape, or form. And now I release the joy of Jesus to my son. I release that joy. You can do it for yourself when you're tested, when you're oppressed by Satan, because Jesus is the healer. And you bind those. If you're in unbelief or doubt about certain promises of God, bind those demons and say they can't influence me in any way, shape, or form. And now I release the blessing of healing in my body. I release the blessing of the joy of Jesus, which is my strength if you're struggling with depression. You bind the demons of depression, which I mentioned, and then you loose the blessings of God. We have that power on the earth. We have the power of eternity of Jesus. He gave us His name. He gave us His blood. He gave us His authority on this earth. We have earth suits because we wield authority on the earth. And Jesus backs us up. We have the favor of God. We have the power to speak out the word of God, to bind the demons, and to loose all the blessings of God. That is the truth of Matthew 16:19.